fellow students. I'm Himani Sharma, your educator. I warmly welcome you all in this new video in the part 2 of what is research. So in the previous part, we have tried to talk about what is research, what are the objectives, why do we take up research? And I try to give you a brief idea of how, when proceeding with this examination or any examination for that matter, or even if you're trying to enroll for PhD, you all need to know these particular basics. Har ek university mein kahin na kahin you all would have come across the entrance test, etc. You would see that questions are generally asked from this as well. And if we try to particularly talk about UGC NET paper, the entire paper 1 is segregated into 10 units, out of which 1 unit is research aptitude. So gradually we will be moving forward knowing the characteristics, and I hope if you have seen the previous video, which was the part 1 of the same, there your basics would have been clear, correct? So first of all, let's just quickly revise what we have covered in the previous video. The 6 characteristics that I've covered in the previous video were objectivity, that whenever you are trying to do research, you need not put your point of views forward in anything. Let's just take for an example, if you are asking someone that what brand of chocolate do they like? So if someone, you are asking 5 or 10 people, 5 of them say that I like dairy milk. Some of them says that I like, 5-star for that matter. Some say I like Amul. So you will not be putting your point of view and giving leverage to the other person. If you are also liking dairy milk, you will not give, much and more prominence to the people who like dairy milk. You would be collecting and gathering data. You would be putting the data in and collecting it in a record. You'll be keeping that aside, because you would want to revisit it, or if somebody in the future comes and asks you, you will support the evidence, right? Whatever question that person has with the evidence and the data that you have mentioned or cited in your paper, correct? So you need not put your point of views in the research work. Maintain objectivity with no biasness that हाँ मैं इसके साथ हूँ तो मैं इसके लिए बोलूँगा, ऐसे नहीं करना है. Secondly, we talk about reliability, where the word itself tries to suggest this particular meaning, that you need to make sure that if the other person is going to do the research the same way as you did, following the same procedure, doing the same thing, तो वो same results yield हो रहे हैं या नहीं. You will have to keep this thing in your mind to check that whether the results that you yielded in your time are being yielded again. So the more similarity that you gain in your results, the more the reliability will also increase. People will trust on your research. Then comes validity. How much is your research valid? Are you using the tools? That brings me to the next characteristic as well, because they are interrelated. If I try to talk about one thing, that if I want to measure something, if I want to judge something, my weight, my waist, etc., I will be using the instruments for the same thing. And that too, the instruments should be, if I have the weight as 65, each and every weighing machine should show me the same weight. The machine should not be faulty. That should be accurate, and if the results are being yielded again the same time, they are valid as well. Credibility means how much your result, research is credible. How much is it authentic? Have you cited some papers? Have you read them? And have you cited the authentic sources? Not just Googling something and just, noting things down there. But have you read some research papers? Have you read some books? Have you read some quotes that you're quoting and citing in your paperwork? Correct? Then generalization, where from a sample that you have chosen, because आप बहुत सारी population के ऊपर research नहीं कर पाओगे. So you'll have to first of all choose a sample. That would be a particular sample, a set of sample that you have chosen from the population. Now, whatever results you yield from that particular sample, you are going to generalize that. Is generalization happening? That would be totally dependent on your research. So आप एक ग्रुप से उसको दूसरे ग्रुप के ऊपर अप्लाई करके देख सकते हो या नहीं, that should be one thing which could be considered in the last characteristic. Moving forward with the seventh characteristic that we have of research is that it should be empirical in nature. Empirical is something which comes through your own experience, through your sensory experience. I have provided here a picture of Newton. You all would have heard the story of the falling of the apple on Newton's head and then him, developing the theory of gravity, where even if we try to make things fall on the floor, the gravitational pull will make those things fall. Correct? So real life experiences, observations, whatever you feel like, whatever you feel outside in the outside world around you. If I'm walking on the wet floor, I fell down. That's the observation that I made, that the next time I will not be doing the same thing. Correct? If I'm having headache and I'm taking the medicine for the same, I know that this thing has relieved me from my headache in the first time. Again, if I feel कि मुझे headache हो रहा है, मैं दोबारा से वो medicine ले सकती हूँ. So from the real life experiences, you're gaining some knowledge. That is empirical. Research should be empirical. Concrete data is the basis for validity. Whatever data that you are collecting should be concrete in its nature. It should be systematic. Whatever you are moving forward with, just see how a plant grows. You first of all put a seed. You will not be able to grow a tree in a day. Correct? So you will have to follow the procedure systematically. आप उसको जितना पानी चाहिए होगा उतना required पानी डालोगे, उसमें उतनी खाद, fertilizers, etc. डालोगे. You will not be moving and jumping from step 1 to step 6, so on and so forth. If you try to create something to eat, है ना, recipe follow करते हो, तो पहले तड़के के लिए you need to have the oil, ghee, etc. You will not be directly jumping onto कि पानी में दाल डाल दी, etc. and dal will be ready. You'll have to follow a particular procedure. Same is the case with research, where you are supposed to follow certain steps logically and systematically. Correct? So stepwise procedure is followed. First of all, you will know what is the question that is popping up in your head. What is the topic that you want to do your research on? Then you would be asking questions. Aap hypothesis develop karoge, moving on for, and so on and so forth. You will be collecting data. You will be analyzing it, right? So all those things are being the ones which are following a stepwise procedure. Particular design and framework is chosen. If I want to do, gather some data, experiment करने के लिए, I would need the particular instruments. I would need the particular design. अब मैं experimental में historical design तो नहीं लगा सकती ना. अगर if I want something, if I want to eat Maggi for that matter, I will have to have the instruments, the ingredients with me. So particular design is followed. I cannot do the tadka, etc. of, let's just say, dal makhni for a Maggi. Correct? So the particular design and framework should be chosen, and then you will be moving forward and ahead with your research. Controlled factors. Now, what are controlled factors? The name itself is suggesting. Look at this picture. Control variables. Whenever you are going to do this research, you will be coming across terms like independent variable, dependent variable, right? A variable is something which you are going to measure. The students in my class could also be a variable. ठीक है कि इतनी girls हैं, right? Or let's just say if I'm trying to talk about smoking, right? Smoking is the one which leads to lung cancer. So here I'm trying to establish a cause and effect relationship. But what if there is some other thing as well which is causing the same? Correct? So you need to maintain the control the same way. Look at this particular thing. Independent variable in the simplest terms is the one which could be manipulated or changed. And dependent variable is something which will be the effect. So this is the cause. Independent will always be the cause, and dependent will be the effect of something. The outcome would be dependent. If let's just say dependent variable है plant height, कि plant की height कितना बढ़ेगी, उसके ऊपर कितना असर होगा, depending on the light color. So I am going to choose, I'm going to observe two different plants. keeping them under same conditions. So those conditions would be my controlled factors or controlled variables. What are those now? See here. I will put the same amount of water in both the plants. I will keep the same type of soil for both the plants under the same temperature. डे नाइट टाइम जो भी है सारी चीजें सिमिलर होंगी. ओनली वन थिंग विल बी डिफरेंट, दैट द कलर ऑफ द लाइट, बिकॉज आई वांट टू ऑब्जर्व इफ द लाइट कलर इज अफेक्टिंग द प्लांट ग्रोथ. करेक्ट. सो द अदर वेरिएबल्स वुड बी कंट्रोल्ड सो दैट आई कैन नो कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ लाइट का इफेक्ट हो रहा है ऑन द प्लांट ग्रोथ एंड नथिंग एल्स. करेक्ट. सो दिस इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन टू वेरिएबल्स ऑफ फैक्टर्स. Setting these factors up to minimize the effects of one variable on the other. Let's just say अगर मैं इसमें अलग तरीके की soil डाल रही हूँ, उसमें अलग तरीके की soil डाल रही हूँ, the soil can also have an impact, ना? The type of soil can also have an impact on the plant growth. So I need to make sure that I am keeping both, I'm maintaining the uniformity and maintaining the controllability between the variables that I'm choosing, and only changing the variable जिसका effect मुझे देखना है. ठीक है. Then we have, it is always cyclical in nature, which means that a research will always start with the problem. You will have a problem in your mind, you will have a question in your mind, you will find an answer to that question, right? Starts with the problem, ends with the problem. Now this problem would be a problem for the upcoming researcher. The upcoming researcher, maybe let's just say आपने कोई भी paper लिखा है, there are certain things which are left in your research paper that the other person is going to take up. Correct? Because research is also something about filling the gaps between things. Correct? So it's a form of interpretive research to study human actions and social practices with the participation of the researcher, because you are participating, the other person is also participating, cyclically it's moving. You have found the solution to your problem, the other person is going to find problems, the gaps in your research. ठीक है. और let's just say COVID की example ले लेते हैं दोबारा, that COVID के अलग अलग reasons and how it was spreading and all. One person found a medicine on the same, the other person is trying to find a new thing, right? The other factors to control it. So the other person is taking up the problem from your paper and starting his or her research. The third person would be reading the paper of you and the other person as well, so on and so forth. It's cyclical in nature. It's a never-ending process. It is logical, correct? If we try to talk about after cyclical, the 11th characteristic is that it is always and always, and it should always and always be logical. It should have some reason, it should have some rationale behind it, right? Practically and logically done. कि वो practically possible है. Step 1 से step 2 and 3 we are moving in a systematic manner, but we also need to make sure that that particular research is supported by the evidence and I am moving logically. This implies that research is guided by the rules of logical reasoning, and the logical process of induction and deduction are of great value. अगर मैं बात करूं, let's just try to see here for an example that I have a front yard. ठीक है, मेरे घर के सामने there's a small pool or a pond. I see that yes, of course, each and every summer I see that the 2 ducks, they do come. The next winter or summer, sorry, I will again make sure, or I will again have that intuition maybe now कि summers आ गए हैं, the ducks will again come here. That is something that's the product of induction, deduction, so on and so forth. So from applying one thing to the other, that would be induction from particular, right? From particular to general, you are moving, you are increasing thing. From general to particular would be an example of deduction. Newton की theory, उसको हम generally accepted है. Now I want to test that theory, that would be deduction. I want to test it by making this pen fall. I would test it by making my phone fall on the ground. I would not do that, but of course, just for an example, right? So that is deduction. Induction में आप increase करते हो, deduction में आप deduce करते हो, decrease करते हो, correct? And the last and important part and characteristic of research is replicable. Is it again, अगर आगे चल के कोई और research वही तरीके से करता है, following the same procedure and all, are the things replicable and yielding the same results and all? Verifying it by replicating the research study in a new context, and it should be done in a sound basis, right? You should be supporting your evidence, having evidence to support whatever claim you are making. How accurately the findings would be replicated in a second identical piece of research. Identical. Let's just say if in first research, in one research, जब न्यूटन ने gravity की theory दी थी, then he tried to talk about the apple and all. धीरे धीरे बाकी चीजों पे उस चीज को अप्लाई करके देखा जाने लगा, right? So the replicability was there, but we see identical, not same, but identical. It could be same, it could be identical, right? If I'm making an apple fall again on someone's head, if I'm making a ball fall on the ground, right? All these things are identical in nature, and अगर मैं उसको गिराने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ, the things are falling to the ground is what I'm trying to make a point here when we talk about this particular characteristic known as replicability. Correct? So with this particular thing, I wind up my discussion here where we tried to talk much and more about what is research, what are the objectives and characteristics. The 6 other objectives are already discussed in part 1, so you can go and watch that particular video. Any doubts are welcome. If you have any, drop down in the comment section below. I'll see you again, guys, in another video. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.